Welcome back to the Reckless Driver channel. A tow truck takes away a broken car after an accident, but how did it happen and what happened here? Let's rewind it. As we can see, the driver of the oncoming car lost control and drove into oncoming traffic, resulting in a collision with a moving car. The impact knocked the red car over the side of the road, and the out-of-control car continued to head towards the author of the video and then collided with him. As we can see, the people in the car weren't wearing seat belts, and it all looks scary. Let's see how it was from different angles. I wonder how the other drivers felt at that moment. The first accident occurred recently in Russia. The driver loaded the groceries and set off. It was necessary to go to the neighboring city only 150 kilometers away, but the weather was terrible. Fog and low visibility made the trip difficult. Visibility was so low that the driver could not even see the cars approaching him very close. Time was running out and we had to speed up. He drove onto the highway and immediately caught up with a passing truck, which was driving slowly and carefully, about 70 kilometers per hour. But our driver was in a hurry and therefore decided to make a dangerous and reckless maneuver to overtake passing cars. As a result, an accident occurred. Let's see how it was from different angles and what each driver saw and felt. It's very scary. Unfortunately, I can't recite the results of the accident on YouTube. The second accident also occurred in Russia. The driver was at the gas station, filled up a full tank before a long trip. He was driving with a colleague at work, and although they were driving a regular Hyundai Solaris, the driver did not spare his car and squeezed all the power out of it. It's not clear why he did this, but he drove recklessly the whole way. As soon as he caught up with a passing car on a stretch of road where overtaking is prohibited, his patience ran out and he wanted to overtake from the right on the shoulder, but he did not expect that the car at such a high speed would not cling to the gravel surface of the curb, so out of fear he began to wobble from side to side, and then his car was completely thrown into the oncoming lane. The driver of the oncoming car clearly did not expect this, since from the driver's seat it was not even possible for him to see the car on the side of the oncoming lane. All he managed to do was jerk the steering wheel sharply, trying to avoid a collision, but it was already impossible to do anything. Those were his last seconds. The next accident occurred in the winter, when the road is particularly slippery. Again, the driver was driving over the speed limit for some reason, although as you will see later, for some reason everyone was driving fast, including the author of the DVR video. As you can see, the car drifts very easily on such a surface. It was lucky that there was no accident during the first skid, but soon the small car skidded a second time, and it was not possible to get out of the skid so safely. The out-of-control car was sent into the oncoming lane, where it collided with the author of the video. video. In this accident, the author was very lucky that he was driving a large SUV, but the other participant in the accident was not so lucky. A very big role was played by the fact that he has a very small car, and when such different cars meet each other, the consequences are very sad. Another accident, but this is a completely different context. There was a very annoying, but unfortunately frequent accident. The driver of the car was in the blind spot of the truck. Somehow it so happened that the passenger car was in the right lane, and the truck was in the left. I think they drove like this for quite a long time, and the driver of the huge truck with a trailer didn't even know that there was someone on his right. He probably drove in the left lane the whole way, and didn't even look in the mirrors. One of the drivers couldn't stand dragging behind the truck like that, and decided to get ahead of it on the right. The right thing to do was to do it quickly, because personally, when I drive to the right of the truck, I feel a lot of tension and anxiety. Apparently, the driver of the car did not feel this way and was very slowly ahead of the truck, staying near its right door for a long time, and that's where the blind spot is. Therefore, when the trucker decided to change lanes to the far right, he accidentally drove into the back of a passing car, which caused him to skid and drift into the oncoming lane directly under the oncoming car. The consequences are very sad. And it's winter again. By the way, Happy New Year to you. However, this time, although the road was slippery, the accident was not related to loss of control. As you will see later in the video, both victims of the accident are not even to blame. The third driver, who had arranged all this, was to blame. The driver of the car with the registrar drove calmly with his wife, observed the speed limit, and acted correctly and conscientiously. Suddenly, a car collided with him sharply from the right. It's not something that couldn't have been expected. It was impossible to predict. This is the most unexpected accident and the most insulting, because the author of the video is not even to blame. Some reckless driver decided to overtake him on the right, but did not take into account the weather conditions and that there was snow on the side of the road, so he lost control and flew straight into a car with a registrar, from which he flew into the oncoming lane and collided with an oncoming car. There was no way to react, much less maneuver and avoid a collision. It was inevitable, and you will be able to evaluate the condition of the cars and the condition of the mannequins further. So, the last accident for today, but the most unusual and scary for me. You'll understand what I'm talking about when you see the moment of the accident itself, and then its consequences with a real-life photo at the very end of the video. A 3-lane road, 1 lane in one direction and 2 in the other. It would seem that what could happen here? But unfortunately, if nothing had happened, you wouldn't be watching this video. The driver of the black car was driving normally in his second lane. Suddenly, the driver of the red car abruptly changed lanes from the first to the second lane and did not give way to the black car, from which, trying to avoid a collision, he drove into a lane intended for oncoming traffic. Unfortunately, it was at this moment that a multi-ton truck appeared in the oncoming lane, which is also tall, or rather has a huge ground clearance. As a result, it turned out that a black car drove under a truck. I recommend you watch it to the end. You will be shocked.
ждали часов до 4 ночи, блядь.
трактора. Ой, идиот.